Ladies and gentlemen, the Darth Vader of finance is about to be unleashed upon Iran. That's where I'm going next to our Richmond's Morning News. Let it go for a sec, Dave, because I want to talk about Scott Bessent coming up on the program. So you've heard Scott Bessent's name, but I'm going to use a term. When you think of Scott Bessent, I want you to think of him as the Darth Vader of global finance. And I am not, I repeat, I am not overestimating or making this bigger than it really is. It's 6:34 this morning on Richmond's Morning News. So a lot of people are getting impatient. Wait a minute, why is this thing with Iran going on for so long? Well, the president has three options, and we've said this all along. You can escalate it by putting boots in the grounds and completely taking over that country. We don't have the appetite for that. Number two, you walk away and tell Iran we give up. That's it. We don't want any more of that. That's not going to happen. Or number three, you unleash Scott Bessent like you've never unleashed him before. That's where we're going next on News Radio WRVA. So in order to understand this, I got to take a little bit of a step back and explain to you who Scott Bessent is, because he's taking center stage today as the Trump administration's announced its newest and progressively, potentially most aggressive economic sanctions against Iran. So you have to understand why Bessent matters. You have to understand who he is. So, like a lot of the people in the administration, some have had much success in the private world, private industry. Some have been lifelong politicians. Some have been bureaucrats. Scott Bessent isn't any of those. Scott Bessent is a guy who is not a career politician. And he learned economics not by briefing books, but by being someone who spent roughly 4 decades operating inside global markets. So go down this rabbit hole with me, if you will. And again, either you wake up with Richmond's Morning News or you play catch up all day, because no one else is going to explain this to you the way that we're going to this morning. So Scott Bessent spent 4 decades operating inside the global currency markets. He specializes in currency, government debt, and the pressure points that can turn economic instability into full-blown financial crisis. Now, you're not going to believe this. If you don't know about his background, you're not going to believe this. Scott Bessent at one time worked for George Soros and was part of the team behind the famous 1992 bet against the British pound, a trade that reportedly earned the firm about $1 billion after Britain was forced to abandon Europeans' exchange rate system. Basically, he destroyed the British pound. Scott Bessent was a key member of that team back in 1992. That's why when I say this guy's Darth Vader, this guy's Darth Vader plus some. Years later, as the chief investment officer for Soros Fund Management, Bessent reportedly generated another enormous profit by betting against the Japanese yen, which absolutely destroyed that currency. The man understands what happens when governments, currencies, and markets come under unbearable pressure, and he knows exactly where to put those pressure points. Now, if you're wondering what's going on right now, Iran has runaway inflation, has high unemployment, especially amongst the younger set in Iran. There's lots of people that have lots of money, and we've been individually going after some of the mullahs, some of the people in the IRGC. We've been putting pressure points on people individually, not the entire Iranian economy. That's about to end right now, and Scott Bessent is going to be the point man for the president. So we're not going to go in there and keep shooting at them and keep firing back and forth. We're not going to walk away from this. So the third option is we're going to have Scott Bessent go in there. He's not going to have an aircraft carrier. He's not going to be in a plane. He's not going to be on a ship. He's not boots on the ground, but he is just as devastating economically as Pete Hegseth is with the Pentagon. I'm not overestimating how powerful this man is. He understands what happens, again, how the governments work, how currency markets and exchanges come under pressure to collapse them. And this is what makes him incredibly intimidating. And when he's put in charge of the Americans' economic war effort against Iran. That's why you saw the president of Iran, when they announced this on Friday, he goes, maybe we should quit maybe now that we're winning, we should start talking about quitting this fight against the U.S. The president of Iran came out on Friday and said that. Now, over the weekend, I was doing a little. I put some thought to this and was doing some research and analyzing, and kind of kicking this around. Iran keeps claiming that they're winning the war. Iran keeps saying, absolutely, we're winning the war. Okay. Again, I've told you this over and over again. The biggest mistake you can make is if you mirror your political point of view, your societal point of view, and think that Iranians think of the world the same way that you do. And this is a prime example. I was talking with my son about this. Again, he's a poli-sci major, and we sit and have all these nerdy talks about this. I was watching TV, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard were saying, we're winning this war. How can you say you're winning? And you hear this all the time on the news. Their navy is at the bottom of the ocean. Their air force is destroyed, and they've been completely beaten by the U.S. militarily. How can they keep claiming that they're winning? Simple. Their idea of winning is a lot different than mine. Their idea of winning is a lot different than yours. And their idea of winning is a lot different than Americans. Our idea of winning is we cross the finish line, arms raised, we're there first, boom, we win. Their idea of winning is a little bit different. Our idea of winning in a military fight is we just beat you militarily, we destroyed you, we win. Their idea of winning is we survived and we're still here. Think about the difference between the two. We survived, we're still here. Well, we are still here. So for them right now, yeah, they think they're winning the war because from their point of view, the U.S. hasn't invaded, the IRG hasn't collapsed, the U.S. hasn't come in there, invaded their country, taken over. For them, every day that they stay alive, every day that they haven't been conquered by the U.S. is another victory. So as they keep talking about we're winning, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning, simply because they haven't fallen yet. See how the difference between the two of us, how we look at the world? Their idea of winning is not collapsing. Our idea of winning is we sunk your Navy. Two different completely ways to look at the world. So that's where Scott Bessent comes in, and I'm calling him the Darth Vader of global finance. Because as he understands these financial systems, because he worked in them for 40 years, he understands where the weaknesses are. He knows where to apply pressure when he wants to make it difficult for an adversary to breathe. Again, we've been going after members of the IRGC and the mullahs and the people with money at the top of the food chain in Iran. He's going to go after the whole thing right now. He understands the markets. He understands how the sanctions campaign has been used so far, and it's explained as an effort to punish Iranians, leaders, military commanders, financiers, and shadow companies helping evade existing restrictions. Remember, we started talking about the Ghost Fleet before anybody else did? That Ghost Fleet is now not able to get oil out. Remember, 80% of the oil sold by Iran goes to China. They've cut that off from China. We also know that everybody's thought forever that China had a advantage over the U.S. We thought it was because of their cheap labor. Turns out, no, it was a oil advantage because they were buying it off the black market from Iran and Russia, 20%, $20 a barrel less than what everybody else is paying. So everything they had to the input of their manufacturing, they already had a $20 a barrel advantage over the U.S. That's why they were such a great economic power. But all of that is collapsing right now. And Scott Bessent is going to take this in a whole different direction. It feels like an escalation, but the administration appears to be moving towards choking off the financial lifelines that sustain the entire Iranian state, particularly the oil revenue, which funds the government, its military, and its regional operations. That means they're targeting more than just Iranian officials. They're targeting more than just the tankers carrying the oil, the shipping companies operating those vehicles, the vessels, the middlemen, disguising the transactions, the banks processing the payments, the refineries accepting the crude, potentially the foreign countries and companies purchasing it. He knows exactly where to put the pressure. He understands where they hide it through the finances, in the markets. He knows where they use shell companies, and he knows where they're doing it through crypto as well. So right now, there's a message around the world. Crypto, last week, it was interesting. Crypto, you're going to start seeing it spike and move because as Besson puts on pressure and they can't do dollars and they can't use these shell companies, they're going to try to hide it in crypto as well. China becomes a critical player because it purchased so much of their oil from Iran. If Chinese companies and banks and refineries continue to help Tehran, the administration's got to decide with Xi Jinping coming to the United States next month, what are you going to do? And that's where Besson's experience comes in. It's so important. He understands the sanctions work through fear as much as enforcement. And if you don't believe me, go back and look on Friday that the president of Iran said, well, we're winning. Again, we haven't been destroyed. Maybe it's time for us to start talking. It puts them in a very uncomfortable situation. Do the sanctions break the Iranian regime, or do they break the Iranian people? We've gone past that. We've tried everything. They can't come to the table. They won't. They have a memo of understanding. In fact, this morning I heard a report that the parliament is going, well, let's go back to that MOU that we tore up. That tells me just the threat of what Scott Besson is going to tell them today can be a game changer. He made his fortune recognizing where the financial systems were vulnerable and positioning himself before they broke. And he's going to do the same thing right now for the American people in this conflict with Iran. You heard it here first. Watch what happens today. Watch how the markets, particularly crypto, moves up and down. They're about to find out what happens that when you mess around and Donald Trump says, fine, Scott Besson, go take care of it. We're about to see that today. He is the Darth Vader of finance. And right now, Iran is about to find out. You want to comment? 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. All right. Today's program brought to you apart by our friends at Pearson Signature Dealerships. Pearson and that Pearson Promise. They double the engine transmission warranty on every new vehicle when you walk in the door. Oh, what's that mean? That means that's just their first commitment. That's first commitment before you even walk in. They say, listen, Rich, you want to get a car here? Great. Just so you know, you have that peace of mind. We care about you so much because not only do we want you to be happy with this purchase transaction, we want you to come back again and again and again. That's how you build a reputation. That's how you build a relationship. That's how you stay in business for 50 years, by taking care of people. So whether you're on the West End at Pearson Chrysler Jeep Dodge, or Pearson Mazda on West Broad, Genesis of Richmond, Pearson Hyundai, Midlothian, or near Woodlake, there's Pearson Honda on Hull Street. They all carry that Pearson Promise that we want you to be a customer for life before, during, and after the sale. Find out more. See their entire selection of new cars and previously owned vehicles at buypearson.com. That's buypearson.com, the online home of Pearson Signature Dealerships. One more time, buypearson.com.
Join WRVA and 910 The Fan September 22nd at Hunting Hawk Golf Club as Veterans Fire Protection presents Swing for Heroes, benefiting tunnels and towers.
Here to support a friend and a work colleague.
Thank you for your support.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-869-2045 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-869-2045. That's 800-869-2045. What do you have to lose? Call 800-869-2045. Again, 800-869-2045.
Paid for by government. Have you heard? The United States Mint has released the first ever dual date 1776 to 2026 American Eagle